Hello and welcome to yet another Fantasy Author Lounge. I am very, very excited today to be joined by ML Wang. How are you doing? Great to see you.
I'm doing pretty good. Thanks for having me.
It's amazing to have you in the Fantasy Author Lounge. Thank you very much for joining me. I'm glad you could make it. First off, I have to say congratulations for winning SPFBO 5. Amazing work. How do you feel about that?
Well, it feels weird. I have a problem where I don't really understand other people. Consequently, I have trouble telling what they're going to like or not like about my writing. So, I mean, there were people who told me when I entered that they expected the Sword of Kaigen to do well, but so I was like, I don't know. I guess I'll take your word for it. But I don't know, especially when I wrote the Sword of Kaigen, I was really depressed. I wasn't in a good place. And you don't have a lot of self-awareness when you're depressed. So when I finished it, I was like, I didn't really know what I had, but it was what I had. So I published it. And then it was a really pleasant surprise when people did like it. But I always have kind of a disconnect between the way I feel about my stuff and the way other people do. So I just kind of took people's word for it and I entered. And I didn't actually expect to even get to the finals. I mean, you were in my phase one batch, as were a lot of really good authors, and that was scary. So it's all been a surprise, but a surprise where like there were people who expected it to do well, and maybe I should have just like believed them.
I know that feeling though, all too well, ML. It's honestly something that, I think I get with every single book that I put out there. People say it's good. And I'm like, really? So tell us about yourself for those people who haven't been caught up in the news of SPFBO and haven't seen that you won or picked up Sword of Kaigen yet, because you really, really should for anyone watching. Yeah, tell us about yourself. Who are you? What is Sword of Kaigen about? Yeah, tell us the whole deal.
Whole deal. Okay. I mean, so the Sword of Kaigen is a Japanese-inspired military fantasy. It's slow burn. There are swords and elemental superpowers, and I don't know. I think that's pretty much all you need in the way of description. I think what's distinct about it is that it follows a family rather than there's obviously variety in what fantasy follows. I mean, some follow like a couple of romantic leads, and some follow the lone hero. Or I think a family is kind of unusual, and it follows a couple different members of the family, and there's intergenerational trauma and stuff. That's, I think, what makes it distinct. About me though, I don't know.
Don't be shy now.
So the Sword of Kaigen it's a standalone prequel spin-off of a universe that's actually much more YA that I've been working on for way too long. Since I was about 12 years old. So I've just recently discontinued that universe because, unsurprisingly, it's kind of broken because, it contains world building decisions that were kind of cemented in place by years of outlining and planning that I made when I was like 12. Okay, there isn't a lot of my 12-year-old world building decisions, but there are some of my like 17-year-old world building decisions, and those are your mileage varies with a 17-year-old writer. I've been working on this series a really long time. I wanted to be an author from the time I was 9, and the reason for that is I was 9 when I became competent to write actual stories, other than just like one-page misspelled scribblings. And I was slow to reach that level of competence because I was a pretty unfocused student in school.
Me too.
But basically, as soon as I realized, I can like take my head things and put them in writing, that's what I wanted to do.
Amazing stuff. Yeah. I mean, I don't know if it was 9, it's probably somewhere around there. Probably a bit later, around 10 or 11, but yeah, I had the same sort of spark, just being like, I can make up my own stories now. I like these ones I've read, but what about my ideas? Was Theonite the first ever thing that you started to work on when you were sort of 9, between the ages of 9 and 12? Was that your first thing and you've stuck with that since, or did you have a first project? like I did and started on something horrible and will never ever see the light of day.
Well, yeah, I had other projects, like yours that probably I won't be sharing at all. So it wasn't the first project I ever worked on where I finished the book. I finished lots of
Right.
books in my youth, and they were bad and weird. But it was one of the first ideas, because from the beginning, when you're a distractible kid like that, you have more ideas than you can physically work on
Mm.
at once.
Oh, yes.
And Theonite at its origin is the Harry Potter knockoff. It started
Mhm.
with the idea of a magic school, um, but it was, when I came up with it, kind of too complicated for me to work with. So I started with stories that had more limited casts and simpler premises when I was 9. I'm trying to remember how old I was when I finished my first god awful chapter book. I think I was in 4th grade.
Ooh,
Um,
it's different from UK and US, so I'm out immediately.
yep. Oops. Okay. Yeah, I can't remember how old I was. Maybe 11. I don't
Fourth
know.
grade will do, yeah.
Yeah, it was a Harry Potter knockoff. And then it gradually, like, roped in every other influence I encountered along the way, hence some of the
Yeah.
really busted world building, and some of the tone problems that, as much as I tried to streamline the Sword of Kaigen, I think made their way into there, and people are like, oh, there are superheroes in this universe. In
Never
this,
knew.
like, bizarre, like, kind of high fantasy, kind of anime-y, kind of sci-fi universe. So it's a little busted in that way. And in the Sword of Kaigen, I really stripped back a lot of
Mm.
the outside weirder elements of the universe. But I don't know. I think you can feel the juvenile world building efforts there a little bit.
I don't think so. I think it's great. I mean, I obviously won the SPFBO, so a big round of bloggers and reviewers thought so too. So, I mean, yeah, congratulations again, ML. It is really fantastic. So, tell you what, let's talk about your writing process. So, how do you write? On an average daily basis, do you get up and write in the morning and churn out X many thousands of words, or is it something you do in the afternoon, on the bus? Yeah, what's your writing process?
I mean, it varies a lot, and it's varied at different points in my life. When I was a kid, it was my escape from, like,
Mm,
school and other stuff I thought was dumb. So uh, I would go bury myself in that
mm,
when I'd had an annoying day. I don't really do that anymore. And even when I was a kid, but actually more so now, I am a really distractible person. So my current strategy for this year that's been working pretty well is that I have a word count tracking spreadsheet. I keep it open alongside my word processor on a laptop that doesn't have any internet. And then when I,
ooh,
like,
clever.
twitch to go, like, I don't know, check social media or look something up, I use that click energy to enter my new word count, and then I do see the number go up, and then it satisfies my
That's
little
awesome.
whatever brain chemicals those are, and then I can get focused again. Recently, writing has been a big exercise in tricking myself into getting it done. The world building comes naturally. That's all always
Mm,
fun, and the daydreaming. But then
yeah,
as far as actually getting the writing done, I have to trick myself. It's like
that's good though.
wrangling a toddler.
Yeah.
So.
I mean, that's it. But it sounds like you're very dedicated to at least that schedule. I like the idea of having the spreadsheet tracker as well to at least keep yourself kind of measurable, if not tied to anything. Do you sit down and you have, I need to write 3,000 words a day? Or is it, I will sit down during this allotted amount of time and see what the hell comes up?
Well, sometimes I say those things. Sometimes I say both those things, and it rarely goes to plan.
Hmm,
And then when I have days that are good writing days, they're not days that I planned it to be that way. Actually, really often they're days that I had something else important to do that's
right.
kind of pressing, and so I wrote instead. Some of that the same juice I was using, I think, when I was a kid and I would write instead of doing my homework. Um,
Yeah, I'm guilty of that as well, way back in the day. Even when I'm supposed to be doing, let's say, admin or marketing work now, I just be like, oh, but there's that chapter I need to finish, and I'll just wander off and write that. Yeah, I
it's
know that
only
feeling.
really important when there's other stuff to do. So
Exactly, yeah. So when you're, not writing, I imagine obviously you're kind of running self-publishing, the marketing side of things as well. So how do you find that aspect of being an indie author these days? You know, the business, the publishing aspect. How do you tackle that? What are your secrets?
I don't have a lot of secrets. Most of the self-publishing stuff I learned from spying on people who do know what they're doing. Um,
Yeah.
like like you and your cool animated covers and stuff. Uh, yeah, and just sort of like picking up things that think they look cool to me, and then I think, oh, I could do that. Maybe
Mm,
that will work. And so it's been a ton of trial and error. I think it's trial and error for all of us,
I
unless you're
think so.
coming in with some kind of business or social media marketing expertise.
Mm,
Uh, and it has taken a really long time. Because I think I published the first Theonite book in 2016
mm.
with no expertise in anything, and it launched about as well as you could have expected it to, with the cover art that I was using, with the non-strategies that I had. Um, yeah, so I just kind of gradually pick things up, and I don't generally push myself to learn all the things at once, because you can't really implement 50 new things at once. You just sort of take them one at a time, and that's why it's taken me so long.
Oh
And
yeah.
I'm still learning new
Yeah.
things about marketing. I've just got a much better handle on it now than I did when I started.
Mm. Yeah, I mean, we're all learning constantly because even if we learn everything, things change. I find either the next month or a couple of months down the line, like Amazon will change its algorithm slightly, or this will happen. How much of your time is spent writing? Is it 50-50? Is it always on the writing and then kind of marketing here and there, or do you kind of divide it up, in quite a strict way?
I mean, it really depends on the day. I really wish that I was a person who could keep to a writing schedule where I'm like, oh,
Mm,
I wake up and I write for 2 hours and then I take care of my other stuff. And
mm,
I've always really admired people who could do that. That seems awesome. For me, it kind of comes in spurts, and
yeah.
I just have to take them when they come. And it makes balancing writing and a day job really annoying. And
Mm,
I'm still working on how I'd like to arrange that.
I can imagine. Yeah, yeah. I mean, that's the thing. A lot of authors that have been in the fancy author lounge are balancing day jobs and writing, and it is, as everyone said, a really tough job to do, especially when each day is annoyingly different. So, I mean, when you're not writing, then let's talk about it because I know you've got some skills in martial arts. You know, how much of that does find its way into your books?
This is such a complicated question. So I'm a traditional taekwondo and karate instructor. I'm not I'm not a master. I'm not the best instructor you'll ever have. I dare say I am passable. Um, so basically, I know enough about martial arts to know how much I don't know. I know enough to like engage in a discussion about it.
Right.
Um, but I'm not the super mega expert. So the fight scenes in the Sword of Kaigen, they're not really written for realism. They're written for spectacle and emotional impact. I pay
Yeah.
lip service to the fact that if you're actually a good swordsman, the fight should be over with the first
Very
cut,
true.
maybe the second. That's not fun. That's
No,
not good drama.
it's a very
So
short book.
it yes, and it really is it's a balance between like bringing in what I know of martial arts to make the choreography fun,
Mm,
but then not letting it get in the way of the storytelling. I also have the caveat that like all the characters in the Sword of Kaigen, they have supernatural abilities,
mm.
and they're faster and stronger than us, so you could justify some of the ridiculous choreography. um, I don't know, I take what I'm able to do, especially with the bad guys, because my forte is Taekwondo. I'm a kicker primarily.
Awesome.
And so then I imagine, okay, so if I just had no physical limitations, what
Yeah.
would I be doing? Um, yeah, so that's how the martial arts came into the fight sequences. Outside of the fight sequences, I feel like I should have a good, like a really smart answer about how martial arts philosophy plays into the
Yeah.
story. But I think what I mostly did in the Sword of Kaigen, just because almost every major character is a pretty competent martial artist in that story.
Mm,
They're essentially fluent in martial arts. Therefore, all the fight scenes can reflect their
mm.
character in a way that they can't necessarily if everybody's not a
That's cool.
master
Yeah.
martial artist. So I actually have a lot of action scenes kind of taking the place of what would be conversation scenes in
Mm,
other fantasy books. And yeah, I kind of use them as dialogue and character development in a way that I wouldn't in a book that wasn't about martial
mm.
artists.
That's really
Um,
interesting. Yeah.
yeah, so I think instead of the martial arts making its way into other facets of the story, I think that I picked up some character development scenes and dropped
Mm.
them inside fight scenes instead. So it's
Shook
kind
them
of the
up
other way around.
yeah, I like it. That's I think that's really clever. It's really interesting as well to find a new way of expanding on a character, developing that character without sitting down and having one of those big info dump conversations.
I
Awesome
think I
stuff.
still probably have too much of those as well, but
You've
I
got
took
to at
a
some
lot.
point.
So
You can, there's an element where you can't, some things you just can't get away from, or you've got to dress them up in such a clever way, but it's still at its core that big long conversation, which I kind of like, especially if you got interspersed between fight scenes, and then you just get to sit around the campfire with your characters and yeah, have a little conversation.
I'm not like this, obviously, or I wouldn't be an author, but there are really good martial artists who they're not articulate with their words,
Mm,
and a ton of their self-expression happens through fighting.
mm,
So, and I think the characters in the Sword of Kaigen are a lot like that, which is part of the reason I, went and articulated a bunch of their feelings
mm.
in non-dialogue action scenes. So that's a different consideration. It's just like characters who have non-word oriented brains.
Yeah.
And I find that interesting, but like
Mm.
kind of challenging and probably not the thing to do in every book.
Well, it seems to have paid off, let's say, because I mean, a lot of people say that, sort of Kaigen is so emotionally driven as well. So it's not that just bang and hack and slash and, fight, fight, fight. It has that emotional, you said yourself, that tight family dynamic as well. And I think, who knows? I mean, it's it's done well. So yeah, I think it's worked for you. Nicely done, ML. On that note, actually going back to the SPFBO, obviously having won, was it last week now? You probably still, if I was you, I came close that very first year, and even that, had me dancing around for almost a week, and just, pledged to get that
You're
final
still
position.
really high on like the total scoreboard.
I think I just got knocked off by this year. Yeah, I think out of the top 5 or 7 or something like that, I've now been pushed down because this year was such a high
Well, this
scoring
year
round.
was monstrous.
It was amazing, yeah. And to see such a great gender representation at the top as well was brilliant. And yeah, I just think it was a really, really impressive year all round. So I mean, yeah, not just won the SPFBO, but you won a really impressive, tough competition year as well. Do you feel, I mean, yeah, only a week in, are you seeing any effects of it? I mean, do you think the SPFBO has been a big benefit to you as an author, to your career, to your books?
So it definitely was a visibility boost.
Mm,
And it's been one of several that the Sword of Kaigen unexpectedly and kind of disconcertingly had since it launched.
yeah,
Um, I don't know yet.
too early to tell.
We'll see. Like the day of, there was a huge bump in sales and
Mm,
engagement because it was a thing. It was news.
mm,
I mean, and I wrote like a lengthy, sappy blog post about this and stuff. But
absolutely.
the most valuable thing I got from SPFBO was the relationship that I formed with the other
Mm,
finalists. which, yeah, was so valuable in ways that I hadn't even really thought of. I mean, it's good to have friends. Everybody
Yeah,
knows this.
yeah.
This is the moral of every single cheesy cartoon that we watch when we're kids. But
That's it.
something I hadn't really considered was how important it was to have friends who are doing exactly what I'm doing and who are in a similar place in their career to
Mm.
me, and then to be able to discuss those very specific problems and our different approaches to them. And
I know, that's great, isn't it?
yeah, yeah, it was really valuable. So that blog post that I wrote about how much I really appreciated the other finalists and the relationship we developed in our little SPFBO chat, I drafted that well before I actually, I think I had like 3 scores on the board at that point,
Nice.
2 or 3. So I'd already decided that like that was the winning thing from the
Oh,
competition, was
amazing.
having
Yeah.
formed those relationships. Um, so that's the one thing I can say for sure is going to be helpful in the future, because I have these people I trust that I know well, and I know their skills well, and I know their personalities
Yeah.
well, and I can bounce things off them if I really need to. And
Exactly.
that's already come in handy, because sometimes people will like approach you with something in an email, and it's great to have a group
Yeah.
of people to go to and be like, hey, is anybody else approached by this guy? Or like, does this sound like a good idea? Does
Yeah.
this sound sleazy or on the level, or
Yeah.
what's this? And they've been massively helpful with that already.
Mm.
So I'm excited to have that moving forward, if nothing else. I think it's too
Exactly.
early to say what the long-term effects of
Mm.
winning the competition are going to be. But hey, I can ask Rob. So this is why the chat is
That's
useful.
it. Yeah. I mean, that's the most amazing thing. And Rob's actually going to be featuring on the lounge. He doesn't know this yet, but I sent my goons out to just go grab him, kidnap him, and then he'll be in the lounge soon. But I mean, yeah, I'm in a group with him as well, and I think you and I are in a group on Facebook as well. There's so many now. But
Yeah.
I just love that, and it's come up in every fantasy author lounge, and I know Rob has said it in the group that we're in. That community is just the real prize, not just of the SPFBO, but of this indie author revolution that's been going on for the last decade or so. We're solitary people. I mean, this is it. This is all I see most days a week, especially more now that there's a quarantine. And it's amazing to be able to, yeah, either pick up the phone and check a group, or yeah, FaceTime or Skype with someone and know that you're not alone. It's brilliant. And there are other people doing exactly the same thing with different books, but exactly the same thing, and trying to do exactly what you're doing. It's really heartwarming, I find. And just hearing you talk about it there, I was just like, yes, community. So let's talk about the future then. Let's finish off with that. I mean, what are your goals now? What's next for you, ML? What's after Sword of Kaigen? Are we going to see Sword of Kaigen 2? Are you ever going to go back to it, do you reckon? What's on the cards?
So I think I mentioned I discontinued the universe that the
Mm,
Sword of Kaigen belongs to. Yeah, it's
done.
pretty busted, and it's
Mm.
something that I may come back to.
I can see you
I
thinking
think
about it as
right
well.
now it seems like, oh, 20 years from now I might be smart enough to restructure it so that it is functional.
Mm,
And yeah, there's so many problems with it that they're not just like logical holes, they're not plot holes, they're like deep thematic issues that
right, I see.
it really tried to tackle a lot that a teenager isn't quite competent to
Right, yeah.
tackle. So we'll see if one day I'm smart enough to pull it together, but
Give it
it's not
time.
today. Um, so what I'm doing now is I'm building a new universe that is a lot loosey goosier as far as its settings and its timeline.
Mm,
It's a lot more fantasy in
mm,
that there aren't one-to-one parallels to any earth cultures or
mm.
events that are going to constrict me in the ways that the Theonite universe did. So basically, I'm building it in order to accommodate the range of fantasy and sci-fi stories that I want to tell. The timeline is long and malleable,
Amazing,
so
yeah.
I can
Lots of
just kind of
elasticity.
insert the stories that I want to write.
Yeah.
So it's a big universe, but it's very flexible.
Hmm.
So yeah, the past couple months have been dedicated to developing that. It's getting to the point where I can actually dig in and write stories into it
Amazing.
without there's enough groundwork there that they
Mm.
won't go off the rails and get lost. So I have two trilogies planned in that universe, one on either side of the major ocean.
Wow.
And then I thought I should probably throw in a novella that I might be done with in the foreseeable future,
Why
just because
not? Throw it in.
I haven't published anything in ages because I made such a mess of my schedule by changing my mind about the direction I wanted to go.
Yeah,
So I
understandable.
am planning a shorter thing that I might be able to release soonish.
I'm looking forward to them personally. I can't wait to see what you do next. No pressure at all. Take your time. I never want to pressure anyone to writing. But yeah, I know there's lots of people, including myself, looking forward to reading it. Well, ML, it's been an absolute pleasure to have you in the Fantasy Author Lounge. If anyone watching wants to find out more about you, go grab a copy of your books. Where can we find you? Where are you online?
I'm at mlwangbooks.com. If you go there, there's the links to the social media newsletter and stuff.
Awesome.
I'm kind of active on Twitter,
Mhm.
even though I probably plan not to be soon. M_L_Wang WANG. So
Nice. We'll get those links up there. Awesome. Well, thank you very much. Well, I'll let you get back to your writing. Hopefully, yeah, staying safe, keeping indoors with all this crazy health crisis going on.
yeah.
See you soon on Twitter and Facebook, no doubt.
All right. Thank you so much.
Thanks, ML.